Commissioner Ranzau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I have several comments I want to make here, and I'm prepared to make a motion. I'm going to support the staff's recommendation reluctantly, and I want to say why, and then make a few comments about how we got here. First of all, this is not we're making these cuts because we have to, not because we feel that we don't like certain programs or they're not worthy. And I've had a lot of input from a lot of different people. We've got this study here that was done by WSU. We have Mark Matterson and all of his staff that have took many hours to take a look at this, and I'm just not in a position to second guess their recommendations. I've asked them lots of questions and a variety of different approaches we could take, and in their mind, this is the best approach. I believe that Big Brothers Big Sisters, Community in Schools, the Girl Empowerment Program are all very good programs. And the fact that they're at the bottom of the list tells me just how important, how critical those programs are that are above them in my mind. I wish we could fund them all, but we can't. And I want to put out some information here just so everyone is aware. Keep in mind that we're in this position because since 2009, the state has cut the funding for these areas to the tune of about 80%, from 1.271 million to 241 million. But now the county is going to continue. We're contributing $870,000 into this. We've cut our spending from last year at about $30,000, just like we're having to cut everything in our budget. So I think we are committing our fair share to it, but we're not in the position that we can replace all the funding from the state in the various programs that we have. We simply don't have the money when we're trying to cut $10 million ourselves. So we just have to make these tough decisions. Now, I want to also say that to all the businesses and individuals and groups out there that give money to these causes, I want to make it very clear that they shouldn't have the opinion that the fact that we're not funding these this year doesn't mean we think these are good programs worthy of their continued support. They need your support now more than ever. These are good programs. They do good work. It is also important to know that while we are cutting some of this funding, that they won't go away totally. With respect to the Big Brothers and Big Sisters, our funding that we're cutting is about 10% of their overall budget. Community in Schools, I think, is about 8% of their overall budget. The Girl Empowerment Program, it is about 33% of their budget. And I think all of these are important, but the Girl Empowerment Program is something that really sticks out to me as a father with a 9-year-old daughter. I certainly want my daughter to be empowered, because young girls that are become empowered grow up to be mothers and wives that are empowered to make good decisions for their families. And we talk about return on investment a lot of times with economic development and a variety of things. I mean, how can you quantify the return on investment when you empower women or young girls to become good, strong women and make better decisions in their lives? So I think these are very, very good programs. Now, I'm going to say some things that may make some people angry, particularly some of my Republican colleagues in the legislature, but this is how I feel. I don't think anyone is going to mistake me for what you might call a bleeding heart liberal who likes to throw money at everything that comes around. In fact, as you know, I just voted no on a federal grant today. And I understand that the governments at all levels have to make cuts. Even the state, we're having to do it. And I support that. I don't believe we should raise taxes. We're in a very fragile economy, all that sort of stuff. So I understand the predicament that they're in. But when you cut money, I think it's important that everything be on the table. And I've made the same criticism here for the county, so I'm going to criticize the state and my Republican friends in the legislature as well. Everything must be on the table. And I find it disturbing that we could find $40 million to give to a business that is on the verge of bankruptcy, that is owned by Goldman Sachs, in exchange for the appearance of saving jobs, but we can't fund Girl Empowerment Program. We can find that $40 million in a period of about 4 days. All of a sudden it shows up and we can do it, but we can't over the period of months find $800,000 to fund these programs here. Like I say, not only does this money that we're losing here keep people out of our system and then and decrease the cost to the taxpayers as far as they're not in jails, et cetera, but that's return on investment when you empower somebody and make them a better person that lives on in future generations. As a father who fortunately has a very good wife and a mother, I can see the impact that a strong woman has on their children. You cannot quantify that. So what really makes me angry is that many of those legislators, while they won't publicly say what I'm saying, they agree with me in principle, but they don't have the spine to stand up and vote what they know is true. I also find it hypocritical, and I'm not going to put words in their mouth, but I bet you the vast majority of them would decry the federal government's involvement in the automobile manufacturers in Detroit. They would say the government's intervention in Detroit was unconstitutional, and I would agree with them. They would say the government's involvement skewed the free market. It was not an example of less government, that those companies should have went through bankruptcy as the law dictates and come out better, got rid of the bad parts and kept the good parts and all that sort of stuff, and it was an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars to give to those companies. And I would agree with all of that. But yet, when companies around here come with their hand out asking for exactly the same thing, they're guilty of doing what they complain about the federal government doing. It's one thing to walk the walk, but it's another thing to talk. I mean, it's one thing to talk, but it's another thing to walk the walk. It's hypocritical to complain that our federal representatives and legislatures can't take a stand and say no when they're guilty of the same thing. It seems that when it comes to certain businesses and entities, their spine turns to mush and their values just go out the door. So we need to take a look at that, what our priorities are. We have to make cuts, and it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be painful. But in my mind, if I can find $40 million for corporate welfare, but I can't find money to do some of these basic things, then I know we're in trouble. I mean, when politicians say one thing and do another, that's how you get $14 billion in debt at the federal level. Because they'll say one thing, but they can't say no. You can say no to a girl empowerment program, but you can't say no to corporate welfare. And I don't want to just pick on Hawker and corporate welfare, because there's other strong lobbying efforts up there in Topeka that make people wilt. We are in very serious financial times here at every level of government. That's why we're having to cut. And we need politicians to have some spine to make cuts and make it apply to everybody. And I just find, it kind of makes us look like the bad guys, because we're have to make these decisions here on the ground, but we didn't make the initial cut from $1.2 million to 2.41. We have our own problems, and I've criticized our own priorities, but I didn't want to let this opportunity to go by without criticizing some of the decisions that are being made at the state legislature, because I think it goes all the way to the top. They need to re-examine some of their priorities. They talk about they want to make families stronger. Well, empowering women is the one way to make families stronger. And if you truly believe in free market principles, less government, and you oppose corporate welfare in everybody else's state, then you need to have the courage to stand up and oppose it in your own state and not have a double standard, not being hypocritical.